First play of the game, we're going blind pig.
We're going to go blind pig.
Blind pig, yeah.
So I'm also a big fan of the blind pig.
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the Blind Pig podcast. We are living in a world where Andrei Arlovski is the BKFC heavyweight champion. And as if that wasn't enough, the gods have blessed us with action-packed weekend of Super League basketball. Alongside that, we had developments from the GB's women basketball coach fiasco, alongside the under-20 teams, both the men and women being cut. And game winners were everywhere. It's going to be a whirlwind, so make sure you smash like, hit subscribe, and let's get down into it. Kicking off, we reported that Jalen Deloach was parting ways with the Sheffield Sharks. And true to our word, later that day, the two parted ways. Jalen being cut from the team wasn't a huge surprise, to be honest. He was a nice guy and he had some quality games, but let's be honest, overall on the season, he was underperforming. And hey, it may have been slightly unfair of him asking him to fill the shoes of Donovan Clay, especially in an offense that it's not necessarily designed to showcase someone like Jalen Deloach. There's loads of emotion offense, passing off cuts on the horns action. And let's not forget that Deloach was injured to start the season. However, what no one saw coming was the decision not to replace Jalen Deloach. Speaking to the Yorkshire Post, head coach for the Sheffield Sharks, Atiba Lyon, confirmed that unless something falls that could be very impactful, I'm not going to sign the first thing that I see. Wow. From where I sit, that leaves Sheffield massively undersized, and the basketball didn't look pretty in their first game out on Friday night against Bristol. Their second lowest scoring output in Super League Basketball Championship action. The only time they'd scored fewer was on their very first game, where they scored 60 points, also in a loss to Bristol. And to be honest, they make Darnell Brodie look like prime Shaq on Friday night. I rate William Lee, I think he's awesome, but asking him to guard these huge fives night in and night out is just impractical. Even in the first half against the Cheshire Phoenix, the Sharks looked like a team that didn't believe in each other, they had too many egos, and it looked disjointed. Mervyn James was just 1 for 6 in the first half, after going 2 for 10 in the Bristol game. To their credit, Sheffield came absolutely out, a different team in the second half, much more together, playing solid defence and making people work hard. Frankie Policelli had loads of open looks in the first half, those all dried up in the seconds. And it was a really gutsy call from Atiba Lions, and it really solidified actually what this team needs versus what this team might want to be. In the fourth quarter, Prentice Nixon and Nick Kern, who both started the game, were subbed out with 7:25 left and essentially didn't come back into the game. Nick Kern was in for the last defensive play. Mervyn James as well came out at 7:25 in the fourth, doesn't go back in till there's a minute and a half left. And instead, Atiba Lions rides the absolute workhorses, the dirty guys, the glue guys on the team. Mike Ocharobia, Jordan Rottino, and Rodney Glasgow Jr. And especially this game is about Rodney, man. The dude got the job done, and he made a strong case for having more regular minutes on this team. And what a wild sequence at the end. A huge block by William Lee on Skylar White, literally meeting him at the rim and rejecting the shot. I've watched that back so many times. The dude is so high in the air. On the other end, obviously, we had Glasgow banking in a three. Did he call glass? I didn't hear it. And then a corner three from Jordan Rottino to put the Sharks ahead 2 and ultimately win the game. The Sharks needed this. The crowd was ready to burst. It was legitimately a huge win. And it's a win that saved them from sliding all the way down into 6th, 7th position in championship standings. So really kept them in the thick of things. The risk here, however, though, is that the Sharks take this as though it's fool's gold. Out of all the teams in the league, Cheshire's probably the team that Sheffield are most equipped to deal with without a true centre. Because Cheshire are playing 5 out, it allows Sheffield to match up much better. William Lee, he matches up a lot better with Skylar White than he does with Darnell Brodie. Against a team like Surrey, with huge people, lots of offensive rebounding, it could be so much worse. The Sharks have a couple of weeks now before their game, and I will be absolutely blown away. Like, you can't bet on this stuff in the UK, but if I could, I would bet the house that there will be a new centre coming to Sheffield. And listen, Atiba loves people who've already played in the league. So watch out for a big man to return who's already played in Super League basketball. We'll dive deep into Cheshire's form when we do our SLB Cup quarter-final preview, but suffice to say it was a tough weekend for them as they were on the end of not one but 2 game-winning shots. On Friday night it was Manchester Basketball who came to Ellesmere Port and claimed victory. This game was a whole heap of fun. For some reason Manchester started out in a zone and that really allowed the Phoenix to get going, get running and get their offensive juices flowing. But once Manchester reverted back to a sensible man-to-man defence, the game really heated up. And even Ben Thomas admitted, what happens.
It was disappointing to lose, but I think if you look at the game as a whole, I think Manchester definitely deserved it. They outworked us, and we can't be that team. We can't be a team that is not the hardest working on the floor. And that was the message yesterday. It's basketball, it's an amazing sport. If it was any other team, if it was us making that shot, we'd have really liked to watch it as much as we can on Instagram and all that, like you do your videos. So
look, anytime you get out rebounded by a team 54-32, the team that has that huge rebound advantage should be winning. The fact that Cheshire were even still in this game was a little bit nuts. However, it looked like they were actually going to squeak by with a win. Cheshire took advantage where they could, scoring 18 points off Manchester turnovers, and Pat Robinson almost sealed the deal with a go-ahead layup to put the Knicks up 2 with just 12 seconds left. But Max Jones had a freaking game, and he scored from all variety of ways and ensured that he got to the line. 8 of 9 from the free throw line on his way to 30 points. And let's just break down that last shot. Manchester down by 2, Jones catches the ball from the inbound, gets a pump fake in, and then drains a stone-cold 3. What was crazier is that Jason Swain, in the commentary between Manchester and Caledonia, confirmed that play was actually supposed to be an action for Tim Adidakasi going towards the rim, and Max Jones called his own freaking number and still drained the 3. Chills, dude. Make sure you check out our Instagram post. We put out something covering all of the crazy reactions and angles to this one. Great to see. Ironically though, we can't be too hyped about Manchester Basketball because they went on to lose against the Caledonia Gladiators in the next game. But for a night, Manchester ruled the world. Really quickly, in that Manchester-Caledonia game, big shout out to Daniel Carr, had a huge game and really saved the team when there's a little bit of foul trouble, soaking up those minutes and being productive. And I also loved what I saw from Matthew Ragsdale and Jet Spillman in terms of getting to the rim. All those wins and losses have created an even more tight race in the middle of the pack as they play for second place, or as we like to call it, the Mega Bowl. Only 3 games separate second place and 7th place. So literally, a weekend where you win 1 or 2 games, or a weekend where you lose 1 or 2 games, are really going to be the difference in separating these teams. And I never thought I'd say it, but it's time to get familiar with head-to-heads, because that is going to play a key decider in figuring out where people sit in the standings, along with point difference. Because even with 10 to 15 games left, you can already tell, man, this is going down to the wire, it's going to be close, it's going to be an exciting finish in the Mega Bowl for second place. One team, though, that is racing towards the top is the Surrey 89ers. And I said it out loud after the game, and it's unreal that the Surrey 89ers, they're no longer a feel-good team. They are legitimate contenders. And what do I mean by being a legitimate contender? Well, I think that Surrey should be the favourites in every matchup they go into. And I include London in that because they literally and legitimately won over the London Lions. There was no rest or fatigue or anything like that. They straight up beat them. Hard work, talent meets opportunity. That's how good this team is. They're riding momentum. And London had won the trophy on Sunday, so you could argue, hey, was it a come down from that? But they lost a really critical Euro Cup game that week. And so I think, there's no chance that London team came in not hungry, not correctly having the appropriate fear for a Surrey team. They weren't underestimating them, they weren't underprepared. They came in ready to play, and the Surrey 89ers handled them. And they're the most likeable team right now in the whole of Super League basketball. I don't think I've read one negative thing about a Surrey team. What a position to be in year 2 for Dan Clark, Lloyd Gardner, and all of the staff there that are making Surrey so successful. Even with Michael Graham, who went down with an ankle injury, the team still played really well defensively against London. They handled the threats especially using their zone offence to effectively confuse London. And sometimes that's all you need. It's just to get the Lions overthinking a little bit more hesitant, half a step slower. And offensively against the Lions, we just have to applaud the shot making of Keno Lilly Jr. He hit some absolutely ridiculous shots, like absolute daydream stuff. And there were big shots from Nedas Cholovinskas in the fourth. Ronnie Polite had an awesome game. And even though Ronnie's sometimes overshadowed by Keno, really, really exciting to watch. 50% from three-point land. And Tyrin Lawrence, I can't say enough good things about that kid. The refs probably did grease the wheels ever so slightly in the Surrey victory, simply refusing to give easy foul calls in transition. This one in the third quarter is particularly egregious. The ref literally puts his hand up to call a foul, then doesn't call a thing. I also loved seeing the battle of the young British big men. I think you'd have to give the advantage to Hayden Ling over Ethan Price in this game. Although he didn't have the same shooting efficiency as Ethan, Hayden Ling rebounded the ball like a mother in this game and was critical to their defence. Stepping outside Super League basketball, we need to talk about the GB women's team coaches. Stella Kaltsidou obviously stepped down from the role and has since given a really important interview where she discussed that nobody from Basketball England had reached out to her from November to January, and that only 2 weeks ago did Basketball England start contacting players about playing in the critical upcoming games. There's overarching questions about the availability for players and the funding to bring players back from the States in order for them to play in really key matchups. One twist I was surprised about was Basketball England also spurning Vanessa Ellis, someone who had put their hands up and said, I will coach the women's team, I'm willing to do that role, I understand it, I have international experience. Instead, they decided to go with Kamesh Patel. And I hope they've handled this sensitively. Vanessa just won the SLB trophy, she's pretty much as decorated as any coach can be, and you've spurned someone who is actively trying to help. I really hope she's involved in some way going forward, whether that's consulting, advising, or part of the coaching staff. That being said, Kamesh is a really solid choice. I hope he has freedom rather than them holding that interim tag over his head. Obviously, and now the assistant in Athinaikos. He's coaching Holly Winterburn. He has national team experience. I believe that Stella and he must have had discussions before this happened. Look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to step down. They're probably going to ask you. I feel comfortable if you want to step up. If they didn't have those conversations, wow, is it awkward at work? Can you imagine if you step down from a role on principle and then the guy who's your main assistant coach takes that role? Let's hope they had good conversations and they're on the same page. Ultimately though, this team is really talented and the women have a chance to really be an international contender. But they need nurturing, they need support, and they need the right funding. Funding is clearly a key issue for the programme, and they've announced that they're not entering either a men's or women's team into the GB Under-20 competition. And the accountability for me is just lacking. There are absolutely no balances and no checks, or at least public visible ones, on why these decisions are being made and the needs to communicate them and explain them to the general public and to the fans is absolutely dire. And I'm not trying to pretend that Basketball England doesn't have financial issues. You know, they've been left in a horrific situation from the BBF. I understand it's not their fault. But what I can't excuse is not being able to communicate that to people. 3 lines in a press release to saying you're cutting the under-20 teams is not great. I don't care where you stand, like everyone can agree, you need to communicate more. You need to communicate better. There's loads that we haven't touched on in this episode, but make sure you stay locked in on our Instagram where we drop stuff daily about British basketball. One thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly is the Manchester Basketball City Edition jerseys. This kit was absolute fire. Easily the best kit of the season. Manchester, let's lock in on a kit like this for the rest of the way. We're going to have some great content coming out in the next couple of days. An interview with Triple Double focusing on facilities and another player interview coming out soon. So make sure you hit subscribe and comment below your thoughts and keep growing this community. Peace guys.